Hey everybody, Kevin P. McAuliffe here from ProEditingAtHome.com, and today we're going to take a look at another brand new Digital Juice partner product called StoryBoard Quick 6 from PowerProduction Software. Now, these days, especially with the economy the way that it is, we find ourselves wearing a lot of hats. I mean, as an editor, I also end up finding myself being a producer from time to time. And sometimes it's difficult trying to get things across to a client so that they can understand how things are going to look when they're finally done and on tape. So StoryBoard Quick 6 is a great, simple to use application that's going to help you build some powerful storyboards for no matter what type of project that you're working on. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to use right now. Now before we get started, let's take a look at the system requirements for StoryBoard Quick 6. So for all you Mac users out there who are running on Intel machines, it's supported on Mac OS 10.4 Tiger and higher. Now I'm doing this tutorial on Leopard, so I've been using it for a while with absolutely no problems. For all you PowerPC users out there, it's supported on version 10.2 of the Mac OS and higher. You're going to need 64 megabytes of RAM. When was the last time you saw a program that ran on 64 megabytes of RAM? 1 gigabyte of hard drive space, and at least 24-bit color display. And looking over at the Windows side, you'll see that we'll need Windows Vista 32 or 64-bit or Windows XP 32 or 64-bit. Again, you'll need 64 megabytes of RAM, 1 gigabyte of hard drive space, and a 24-bit color display. So you can see that you don't need the most powerful machine to use StoryBoard Quick version 6. But you know what? I'm using it with a machine that has 4 gigs of RAM. It's a dual 2.4, so you're going to see how fast this program runs on my system. So let's get in here and start seeing how this works. Now, actually, before I get in and show you that, I'm going to show you why this program is something that you're going to want to seriously consider picking up if you're a producer, director, or even if you're an editor and you do a lot of producing and directing, because these days, like I said, I wear a lot of different hats. Now, here's a picture of, that's actually me there walking up to my house. Now, if I was to actually draw this on a piece of paper, this is kind of what it would look like. So you can see that me showing this to a client, and this is not one word of a lie, this is actually my best drawing. Whether I drew this in Photoshop or whether I drew this on paper, that is as good as I draw. And you can see that the difference between this and this is substantial. This doesn't look like something I'd want to show to a client. This, on the other hand, does. So you can see how powerful this image is. And to be perfectly honest, I created this in about 10 seconds. So let's jump into the program and see how this works. Now, I purposely didn't launch the application because I want to show you on one of these newer machines how quick this program opens. So I'm going to come down to StoryBoard Quick 6. And boom, we're ready to go. So you can see that we have our main project window. So we can pick a new project, we can open a previous project, or we can look at the documentation. So I'm obviously going to create a new project. And you can see that we have a whole bunch of different formats that we can choose from. And since I work primarily in HD, I'm just going to select HD TV. It takes a second for it to open my window. And the one good thing is it will always remember the last storyboard size you worked on. So I worked in 720p, 1280 by 720, and that's the frame size it brought up. If I wanted to change that, I could simply come up to the StoryBoard Quick Preferences and change them in there. Now, I'm just going to make sure that all my palettes are out of the way here before I start, because we'll get to the palettes in just a second. So StoryBoard Quick 6 is divided up into a few sections. We're going to look at the main window first, and I'm going to start down here at the bottom, because what we have down here at the bottom is a whole bunch of tools that you're going to use on a probably regular basis while you're creating your storyboards. These are tools that you can use to draw different elements on the screen. So you can see here, for example, we can draw arrows in certain directions. We can draw bubbles to put dialogue in. We can obviously just draw some things. We can type some text in here. I could just type in whatever I wanted to type in. And I'm going to show you how to do all this in detail in just a second. So you can just ignore this for right now. And obviously draw straight lines, draw squares, we can draw circles, we can draw freehand shapes, and we can even draw Bezier shapes if we wanted to, and we can crop certain elements of our image out. So you can see we have all of our drawing tools down at the bottom. Now up at the top we have more of our organizational tools. With our elements, we can not only zoom in and zoom out, but we can rotate them left and right, we can spin them, and we can adjust the stacking order of them in our storyboard. Now, over here to the left, we can navigate through our pages as well right from here. Now, before I get to the palettes, the next most important window is down here in the lower right corner. This is our caption window, and this is obviously where we're going to type in either script or a description of what is happening. Now, a great feature of StoryBoard Quick 6 is that you can import scripts from many different formats. So I can just come down to import script, and you can see all of the different file types we can import. We can even import rich text files and even .txt files. But the great thing is there's a lot of flexibility in the type of script that you can import. So we're just going to get out of that here because I'm going to end up typing my own in there. So we're just going to move this down and out of the way. And last but certainly not least is probably one of the most important elements, and that is our palettes. And our palettes contain all of the elements that we're going to put in to our storyboard. Well, maybe not all of the elements, but we'll get to that in just a second. So you can see that we have characters. We have male and female characters. We have different props that we can put in, everything from food to furniture to hand props, even nature, and of course transportation. Then we've got interiors. So we've got commercial, we've got entertainment, industry, transportation, home, and sets. And finally we have exteriors. So we've got the metro or the big city, we've got the suburbs, we've got the country, we've got landmarks, we've got water, and finally we've got nature. Now, if you wanted to choose any one of these as a starting point, all you need to do is simply come over and we'll just pick a background first. Let's say we wanted to have an establishing shot. So let me just pick a landmark. There we go. How about the Hollywood sign? And all I have to do is simply come down, single click on the Hollywood sign, and there we go. This could very well be our first frame of our storyboard. It won't be for our storyboard, but it could be. And you could just type down here, you could type, let's just type something in here. We could type in exterior Hollywood daytime. Okay, so there's our caption ready to go. Now, if we were done with this storyboard right now, there's two other windows that we're going to want to take a look at. So I'm going to come up to Window, and I'm going to come down and look at the Overview thumbnails. And you can see that this is going to give you an overview of all the frames that you have in your storyboard set, along with the caption that goes with it. And finally, to get an idea of what this is going to look like, you can come down to the Print Preview. Now this is how it's going to be laid out on the page. Now personally, I like to work with 2 images per page because that makes them nice and big, and you can see how it's going to lay it out on the page when you print it out to give it to your client. Now I'm just going to throw something in here as a little teaser for the end. There's something extended that you can do with StoryBoard Quick 6 that it's actually not documented in the manuals, and it's something that I kind of came up with on my own, but it's going to be great for all you video editors out there. So stay tuned at the end and I'm going to show you this great quick tip. But you can see how great this looks, and like I said, if I wanted this to be the opening frame of my storyboard, I could very well have that, but we're not. I'm going to show you, I'm going to create 3 frames. We're going to go with the idea that these people have left their houses and they forgot their cell phone and they wish they had their cell phone. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to create something. So let's just close this, and we'll close this, and I'm just going to delete the Hollywood background so we can start from scratch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with someone driving across country in a car. So I'm going to want transportation, and let's pick a car element here. Why not we pick this one here? Now, so you can see we have our car element, and you can see that outside it's a very bright day. Well, it's not actually that bright. What is actually happening here is this is keyable, which is excellent. So what I can do if I wanted to is I'm going to come down to some country exteriors. And let's see, which exterior do I want to use? I'm just going to use some trees. And there we go. So there's some trees. We're driving through a heavily forested area. So you can see how great and flexible this is. I can put in any type of background that I want here from any of my exteriors. Now, I obviously need some people in my car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and I'm just going to select a male character first. So I'm going to click on the male character, and you'll see immediately what happens is the different poses of the characters is now open for me to choose from. So you can see, let me just come back, that we have standing poses, walking poses, running poses, jumping poses, sitting poses, and then falling poses. Now, inside each one of these poses, you can see that I have different viewpoints. So once I select one of them, I can then simply rotate the image using this tool up here, my rotate tool. I can simply use that to rotate to any one of these views of that particular character. Now, since I'm going to be working with a character who's going to be sitting, I'm just going to pick a character that's sitting, which is right down here. And I think I'm going to want that angle right there. So that's not too bad. So I'm going to move him into position. Now, obviously, we don't have forced perspective going here. So I'm going to come up here to my zoom tab, and I'm going to zoom in on this guy a little bit. Maybe that was a bit too much. Let's bring him down one. Now we'll bring him up one more. I think that's pretty good just about there. And we're going to sit him on the seat just like that. Now I'm going to put in one more character sitting in the front. Let's pick a woman, and we're going to have her, she's going to be sitting and she's going to be facing the left. That's pretty good. And we'll bring her over here like such, and we'll zoom in on her a couple times. So that's not too bad, just like that. And you can see, basically, I've almost created my first storyboard, but I do want to have one more thing in here. I want to have a bubble. A speech bubble. So I'm just going to create the speech bubble. Now you'll see it always creates the speech bubble the same way. So I'm just going to select my arrow tool and I'm just going to reverse that. Because our guy here really wishes he brought his cell phone. So we're just going to say, I wish I brought my cell phone. Okay, and we can simply scale this up by holding the shift key and just dragging it up like that and then centering it up. We can then come and adjust our bubble if we wanted to. Just crush the bubble down a bit, just so it doesn't take up too much space. Move this into position here. And my storyboard's almost done, except for one thing. I don't like the color of the shirt that he's wearing, and his lips are kind of a bit of a strange color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select him, and what will happen is as soon as I switch to him, I'm going to switch back to my caption here. I want you to watch the color palette and watch what happens. As soon as I click on him, it switches over to the character palette. Now what I can do is say, okay, well, you know what? I don't really like his brown hair. I want his hair to be black, and I'm just going to eyedrop black, and now he's got black hair and black eyebrows. Don't really like the shirt color, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the shirt color, and I'm going to make the shirt color maybe a light green. Yeah, sure, like that. And I could adjust his pants, but obviously I really can't see his pants, so I'm just going to leave them the way that they are. So I'm going to say that this scene is done, except for one more thing. We're obviously not in exterior. We're just going to say exterior, driving, man thinking. Make sure I spell driving right here. Okay, and we're all set to go. So we're ready to create a new frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to frame, and I'm just going to say new frame, and it's going to create a brand new frame for me. So I'm going to create another frame. We'll do something slightly different this time. We'll pick the city, and I'm going to pick a street shot here. Let's pick this one right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a female character who's going to be running because she's desperately forgotten her cell phone. Now, I'm going to bring her over here. Now, as you can see, she's kind of running in sort of this direction here. Now, I can rotate her, like I said before, to see all the different poses that I can put her in. And having her run towards the camera is sort of more what I want. So we're just going to put her about here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another character that's going to be sitting on the steps here. And we'll just rotate him around here. That's not too bad. We just need to scale him down a bit. And we'll just sort of set him here. He just happens to be a bystander. And with her again, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to select a different hair color for her. Why don't we just go with brown for the hair color? That's pretty good. And her lips are a bit pink, so why don't we make them a bit red? That's not too bad like that. And one last thing is we're just going to give her a white shirt. Just like that. Now guess what? She wishes she had her cell phone with her as well. So I could go back through the whole process of retyping everything, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm going to select my previous frame, and I'm going to select both the bubble and the text, and I'm going to Command C on the Mac, Control C on Windows. I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to Command V on the Mac, Control V on Windows, and I'm going to paste this in. And you can see that you can easily copy elements back and forth from one storyboard to the other. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to say exterior, big city, woman jogging. So you can see that I don't need to get too specific because this pretty much shows me in my screen here exactly what I want to be captured on film. So I'm going to create one more frame here, and I'm going to show you something else that you can do with this program that's really, really cool. So I'm going to come up and create a new frame. And I have one last shot. And it's going to be of, let's pick We got some scenery here. Well, let's just pick the big city again. And I'm going to pick one. Here we go. I'm going to pick a skyline shot here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to minimize my color palette here. And I'm going to come up to transportation. And I'm going to select a hot air balloon. Now, my hot air balloon is going to be traveling through the sky here. We'll just shrink it down a bit because it's not going to be that big. And of course, again, I can simply press Command and V because it's still in the computer's memory, because they wish they'd brought their cell phone as well. And we're just going to change the way the bubble's going. And there we go. Now, let's say I showed this to the client and the client said, that's great, except for one problem. That looks like New York City, and we're not shooting this in New York City. We're shooting this in your hometown of Toronto. And I was like, well, I don't know. This is really the only thing I've got. And the client says, well, we're going to do a focus group on this, and we really need to see Toronto. Well, guess what? You can not only use all of the elements you have here, but if you have your own elements, you can import them as well. So I can simply remove the background of New York. I can come up to File, Import Image, and say Image. You can see I can even import Photoshop layers. And I'm going to come to Storyboard 6, and I'm going to say Toronto Skyline, and I'm going to say Open. And guess what? The Toronto skyline appears except for one problem. What happened to my balloon? Well, when you import elements and drop them into your frame, it's going to put them as the topmost layer, when obviously we don't want it to be the topmost layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to my stacking order, and as you can see here, the white represents the current frame that I'm working with, and the white represents the Toronto, and I want to put it back as the backmost element. You can also simply do that under Object, and you can see you have Bring to Front, Move Forward, Move Backward, and Send to Back. Now the difference is, selecting Bring to Front, if you have 6 elements in the stacking order, it's going to bring the backmost element all the way up to the front. Move Forward will just bring it one up in the stacking order. Same with Move Back, and Send to Back is obviously to send it all the way to the back. Now because I have multiple elements underneath, I have the balloon, I have the caption window, and the typing, I want to send this right to the very back. So I'm going to say Send to Back. And you can see there's my balloon ready to go. So you can see that I just created 3 very quick frames, and I'm just going to type in exterior, big city skyline, hot air balloon. Passes. Now let's just make sure I spell that right. 2 L's in balloon. Okay, now you can see that again, I don't need to get specific in my description because guess what? If I read exterior, big city skyline, hot air balloon passes, and I look at this image, it's pretty self-explanatory. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up to Window, and I'm going to come down to my print preview screen, and you can see now that these are already ready to go. Now if I wanted to have these 3 on the same page, I could simply select the 4 storyboard layout, and you can see how it lays it out. Now, I personally prefer 2 per page, but essentially I'm ready to now go and give this to my client. So you can see how easy it is to create storyboards that's really going to get the idea of what you're trying to shoot across to your client. Like I said, you have a whole bunch of different props here. You have fruit, you have hamburgers, you have bowls and microwaves. You know, in furniture, look at all the different furniture you have. You have a whole bunch of different furniture. And like I said, if you have elements that you want to bring in, it could be everything from a background. It could even be an element that has an alpha channel that you want to bring in. Maybe it's something specific like a cellular phone that's a specific brand name that you want to have sitting on a table. You can bring it in with an alpha channel and put it on top of a table in this program. Now, one last thing that I want to mention, and this is not documented in any of the software, and this is something that I came up with on my own. And that is, you know, a while back I used to work for an ad agency, and we would do focus groups, but we wouldn't use storyboards. We'd have a storyboard component of it, but the storyboards weren't what sold the product. We did animatics. Animatics are basically moving storyboards. And they're used to really give the client the idea of what's happening. Because I could say here, you know, this balloon is moving this direction. And I could put this over here like such. So you kind of get an idea of what movement is happening. Okay? Or actually, maybe in this case, what we would do is we would say the arrow's moving this way. And let's say the balloon ends there. And then he says, oh, I wish I brought my cell phone. But you can't really convey that like this. I mean, I could type in direction. But what if I really wanted to show, and I really wanted to show, the client what I was getting at. Well, here's another thing that you can do with StoryBoard Quick 6 in conjunction with a compositing program like After Effects. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this arrow, and I'm going to delete the background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my shape tool, and I'm going to draw a shape. Now, as soon as I draw the shape, you'll see that up here in the color palette, my paint bucket immediately becomes active. It's asking me what color I want to use. So what I'm going to do is I am going to select green. And I'm going to make sure that it's the back in the stacking order. I'll make sure that my arrow tool is selected. And we're just going to fill the frame with this. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say File, Export, Frames to Files. And we'll do it as a JPEG. And I'm just going to do the current frame. And I'm going to say OK. And we're going to lay it out to the desktop. And I'll say Choose. And we'll just set it to the best quality. And you can see that it's appeared as frame 3 on my desktop. Now, I'm going to Command Tab into After Effects, and I'm going to import that image into After Effects. I'm going to drag it down and drop it onto the Create New Composition button, and there it is right there, ready to go. Now, I obviously need a background, so I'm going to say Import File, and I'm going to pick my StoryBoard Quick 6 Toronto Skyline. I'm going to drop that in behind it, and you can see that it's much bigger than that frame, so we're going to shrink it down. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the topmost frame with the green in it. And I'm going to say Effect, Keen, Key Light. And we'll just zoom in on our key here. Let's just make our window bigger so we have a better idea of what this is going to look like. And now guess what I'm going to do? Yep, you guessed it. I'm going to key that background out. So now take a look at what I can do. I can now select my frame, and I'm going to crop out the balloon. I'm going to then duplicate that layer, and I'm going to select the mask by pressing the M key on both Mac and Windows, and I'm going to invert it, and I'm just going to turn that topmost layer off because I want to convey to the client that this balloon is going to fly across the screen. So what I can simply do now is set a frame for position, and what we're going to do is we're going to press the U key to show our keyframes, and this is the end frame, so we're going to jump down to 4 seconds here. And I'm also going to want my caption to start there. And what we're going to do, since that's our end position, is it's going to end there. Just undo that. We'll come back to the beginning here. We're going to bring our balloon all the way over here. And what we're going to do is you'll see that the balloon will fly across the screen and come to a stop. And I'm just going to put an easy ease in on that. And you know what? Maybe what we'll do is maybe we'll just start it a bit higher here, just so we can kind of have it come in and curve its way down, like such. Okay, so now I just come back, I press the 0 key on the numeric pad to preview it. Actually, let's stop that for 1 second, because I'm going to turn my frame on here to show my caption. And you can see the balloon fly in, come to a slow stop, and then he wishes he'd brought his cell phone with him. Just like that. So you can see that it's very, very easy not only to create awesome looking storyboards, but if you needed to take your storyboards to the next level, you can do that and create animatics out of them. Now, there is one last thing that I want to show you before we wrap up, and I'm just going to Command Tab back to StoryBoard quick because this is very cool. I'm just going to undo what I just did here. Actually, let's just delete it and I'll just put the background back in. We'll come back to File, Import Image, and we'll say Toronto Skyline, and we'll move it to the back. Now, as I showed you before, I have 3 frames that I can work with. Now, to get this out of here, obviously we can do it one of a couple ways. You can export an image like I just did, and we'll just hide again here, and I'll just hide After Effects. And you can see on the desktop it created a frame called frame 3, and there was the image that I exported. So if I wanted to export this, let's say to email it to the client, I could simply come in back to StoryBoard Quick 6 and say File Export, and then say Frames to Files. And it would ask me, it would say, well, what do you want to export? Do you want to export all frames? And I'd say yes, and I'd say I want it to be either a bitmap, a JPEG, a TIFF, a Photoshop, or a PNG file. And I would just say OK. It would say, where do I want to do it? We'll just say to the desktop, and I'll say choose, and we'll do it as the best quality here. And say OK. It's going to say that I already have one called frame 3. That's fine. And you can see, just like that, believe it or not, all of my frames have been exported. And the quality is exceptional. The images look great. And you can see that this one looks really good because I brought my own image in. But check this out. This is how things get really cool. I'm going to come back into StoryBoard Quick 6. And I'm going to come back up to File, and I'm going to say Export to Flash Movie. Now, I'll just leave the frame duration as 1 second for now, but you can see that I can also include HTML in my export and show the control bar. So I'm going to leave all of this just the way that it is, and I'm going to say Export. And it's going to ask me where I want to export to, and I'll just call my file Kevin, and I'll say Save. And because I only have 3 frames in about 3 seconds, it's done something. Well, let's see what it's done. Well, it's created a new folder on my desktop called Kevin-Flash. And I'll double click and you'll see that in here I have an HTML file. And if I double click on it, you'll see that I now have a Flash movie of all my frames. And I have a toolbar at the bottom that if I wanted to hit play again, I could pause it and look at the frame. And I could pause it and I could look at the frame. And I could pause it again and look at the frame. So you can see that this is a great way to send something to your client to get quick approvals of something. If you have a thought about a shot that you want a certain way, or maybe even need to send it to your director of photography, a quick and easy way to do that. Now for me personally, and I'm just going to quit out of Firefox and I'm going to throw this into the trash here. I'm going to come back into StoryBoard Quick 6. For me personally, I actually like to export files as websites. And I'm just going to create a new folder here and we'll just call this Kevin. And we'll say choose. And you'll see in about 2 seconds it's exported the file. So I'm going to press Command H to hide and come down to Kevin here. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to double click on index.html. And you'll see right away that what it's done is it's created a very basic website that's going to show all of the frames for my big commercial that I'm shooting. It gives me the descriptions as well. And it even says the order and even says the date and time and the name of the project that I'm working on. So you can see that StoryBoard Quick 6 is not only a great program for getting across the exact message that you want to get across in whatever you happen to be filming, but it's really very flexible when it comes to things like the animatic that I showed you, and even in exporting to get approvals from your clients. You know something? If you shoot stuff on a regular basis and deal with clients, and especially deal with clients that can be difficult and can give you a hard time when it comes to shooting stuff because they can't really see what your vision is, I definitely recommend StoryBoard Quick 6 from PowerProduction Software. Like I said, it is a brand new Digital Juice partner product and I highly recommend it. It is an excellent and very easy to use program. So if you have any questions, comments, or tutorial requests, head on over and post them in the Digital Juice forums. This has been Kevin P. McCullough from ProEditingAtHome.com. Thanks a lot for watching.